If you're a heating and air conditioning technician or even a salesperson, what is your non-client profile and why does it matter? This is a fantastic question. I'm Scott Silverman, coming to you live from Sacramento, California on a perfect day to talk about sales and business and a fantastic day to talk about you for HVAC technicians, sales secrets. All right, in marketing and sales, they have this thing called an ideal client profile. And so what you do is you go through the profile, you look at it and you say, this is the type of person that I want to do business with. Now, one of the things that nobody really talks about, and they should, is what is your non-client profile, okay? So if we had to peg this at a portion of the population, let's say it's 3% for a metric for you to follow. And the reason you need these guidelines is because it's really easy to look for reasons to not do deals, okay? Sometimes you're like, I just don't, it's Wednesday. Sometimes like, I'm having pizza tonight, I don't want to do the deal, right? So it should only be, let's say, roughly 3% of the population. You're going to find that a non-client profile shows some activities that you don't like, and they're going to populate over time. So there's going to be an effort on your part where you may have to get with your team, you may have to get with your organization and say, what are some traits? What are some things that we see? What are the red flags, yellow flags, or green flags? Red flags means no freaking way. Yellow flag means we need to have a conversation. Green flags mean, hey, we're going to go, okay? And you are going to find that through any sales process, any consulting gig, any type of thing that you do, there are normal and non-normal questions or statements. And so there's the norm, and you're like, okay, cool, I get it. And then there's the non-norm. Now, some people just ask questions to ask because they really want to know. And some people are your non-client profile. So you should really take some time to define these things so you're not making a mistake. You know, if you look for reasons to not do a deal, I promise you, you are going to find more than you ever need. So, is everybody your client? No freaking way. They're not. They're not your client. They belong going with your competition. They belong going with somebody else, but not you. So here is some data that you would definitely want to collect over time. Time frame. Your ideal client that you meet with may do a deal in 2 weeks. It may take a couple of appointments. Your ideal client may do business in 90 minutes, okay? Your ideal client gives you certain actions. Like these are the things that it's going to come down to. Time. How much time does it take to meet a metric? Questions asked or stories told. Questions asked or stories told. Actions taken or actions not taken. So like if you're like, hey, Scott, how do I build this out? Time to do a part of the business, to do a deal, to have a conversation. Questions asked, questions not asked, stories told, or actions or not actions. Now, I'm going to give you a bunch of examples, but before we go there, you should absolutely join my email publication. Go to this URL, type it into a browser, drop in your name, your email address, maybe your phone number. I'll give you the goods. Not in the Facebook group, not in the YouTube channel, which means private coaching, private training, discounted coaching, discounted training. It's an email publication. You get emails from me, and occasionally I try to sell you stuff. The reason that you need a non-client profile is it keeps you from getting in trouble. Now, as a reminder, I want you to know about 3% of the population. You can go way too far and be way too rigid, okay? Now, you can have ideal client profile statements that are something like, hey, our best clients pay via wire. And what you're looking for is a reaction. I never pay via wire. Okay, all right. Our best clients pay when the job is done. I never pay when the job's done. What you could be looking for is a reaction. You could say, hey, the only way that we work is Monday through Friday, or the only way that we work is from 8 to 5. What you want to find out is sometimes you're slightly pushing some buttons, and if they don't agree to them, what you're looking for is a resistance, okay? So when I did in-home sales, I had my non-client profile. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. People would come to me and say, hey, Scott, I want a quote. Okay, most people would say they wanted 3 bids. I would have to go, this is a 50-50. And I would correct them and go, hey, I'm sorry, I don't do quotes, I do proposals. Quotes mean I'm going to give you a guess. A proposal means it's going to be everything that you're going to take. And a person who was down would go, yeah, totally down for that. A person who was going to fight me would be like, can you just give me a freaking proposal? Can't you just give me the number? And I'd go, something's wrong here. I'm going to trust but verify. And usually the gut instinct was right, okay? So in-home sales, I would go out to meet with somebody and someone would say this phrase, the independent guy. right? And I was like, over time, what I figured out was they would call, because I typically worked for big companies. What they would do is they would call what we referred to as a Chuck in a truck, and they would have Chuck come out and give a proposal, and Chuck was 20%, 30, 40% less, and then they would call big company to come validate. Big company would come build a scope of work so that they could validate that little dude was doing his job right, okay? Sometimes it would be, how would I do this? If you were me, how would I do this, right? And so in my mind, I'd go, okay, I got to figure out, and I would ask, time out. Are you asking because you want to know, or are you asking because you want me to show you how to do it? Do you want me to do the work, or are you trying to get me to show you how to do it? And the answer was like, no, but I mean, I would call it out. And then sometimes they would go, well, I'm sorry, I'm just being cheap, or I don't have the money. I just want somebody to show me how to do it. Like, that's what YouTube's for, okay? One of them, when I was in in-home sales, was I sued this guy, I sued that guy, I sued this guy, I sued that guy. Like, if lawsuit came up more than twice in a conversation, I was like, I'm out. Doesn't matter how much money I could have made, okay? I'm going to give you some consulting examples. I want a detailed description of how you would do this. No, I'll give you bullet points, right? And I'm not giving you all of them, okay? And I look for the pushback. I have a bunch of questions about your process. Okay, well, that's cool. What questions do you have? Like detail. Like if you do a gig long enough, you're going to know if that person is in scope for your ideal client profile or way out of scope. Like one of them I went through about 2 months ago was, what happens if I don't pay you on time? Like, why would you bring that up? Well, I don't know if we have the money and we might be going through bankruptcy and this is our last ditch and at least they told me, right? At least they told me this is our last ditch and our last effort. So what happens if I don't pay you on time? I'm like, well, we just pushed up the risk assessment. When you take the time to build out your non-client profile, the main areas for you to look at are time the person's willing to spend with you, time they're not willing to spend with you, time to get you projects, proposals, information, data. It could be the questions that they ask, whether they're weird or unweird. And the way you get with your team and you're like, hey, what are your metrics? Now, I'll give you a metric for me for time. When I did in-home sales, if I was at that home for about 60 minutes to about 2 hours, and I sold that deal, that deal had like a 99% chance of it going through, okay? If I was in a house over 2.5 hours, I had a 90% cancellation rate. And so time you can look at from a metric is TOC, time on call, time TWC, time with client. And you can figure out, hey, like what is the ideal time that somebody buys that is a good buyer? Questions. You can make a list of questions that are in scope, like what are normal, and then you can make a list of questions that are not normal that would go towards your non-client profile. And then there's actions and non-actions. Now, I will share with you an action for me that is super important is how people treat servers and restaurant staff. So I went on a deal probably 7 years ago. And the person that I was meeting with flipped out over the flavor of soda that they had in their drink. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, we're not doing a deal. And in the front of my mind, like, but it's a deal. And so, silly me, I go with it's a deal. It was an absolute nightmare. How that guy treated the restaurant staff is how he treated my team, is how he treated me, is how everything went sideways. It was not good, okay? It was absolutely not good. So it could be like actions, how they treat your staff, how they talk to you in emails. So once again, you got red flags, no freaking way. You got yellow flags, like, we got to have some conversation here. And then you got green flags, like, we're just going to go with it. But if you take some time to build out your non-client profile, what you're going to find is things run smoother. It's less wear and tear on your staff. It's less problems for you. But it takes some time and effort. Now, here's the thing. If you have a team, if you work on a team, you absolutely want to clarify, like, hey, what's a go, what's a no-go situation? And it may very well be that somebody's got to call and talk to a manager. Let me step outside for a minute. Let me go do this. Hey, I'm meeting with XYZ person or XYZ company or XYZ group, and I've got some red flags. They might be yellow. I could be wrong, right? One of my favorite phrases is I could be wrong, because you know what? I'm a human being. I could be wrong. And I don't want to be wrong about doing a deal when it comes to I could have, but I don't want to deal with somebody who I should not do a deal with that's in my non-client profile, right? Like for me, I'll tell you, cheat at golf, not my client. I don't want to do business with you, especially a business partner. So someone's like, yeah, I went to go play golf. I mean, there's other things. You can make your list. Some of them that I say may not make sense to you. You got 1 of 3 things to do from here. Just 1 of 3. Find the subscribe button, click on it, and every time I send out a video, you'll get an update. 2, hit follow. 3, you know what you got to do. Share this video with a friend. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.